All right. Welcome, everyone. I want to welcome you to this series on the art of product building from Crio. I want to introduce Crio. Crio is a new way of learning computer science skills. It's project-based learning and it's designed to help all of you learn things by actually doing, not necessarily by reading books or tutorials or videos. And through this art of product building, we want to give you a glimpse into what it takes to actually build real cool, real world products. Okay. My name is Ajay. I'm going to be your presenter for the day, being an engineer through and through, and I'm going to um, talk to you today about the art of product building. All right. First of all, why? You know, why should we worry about the art of product building, right? The role of engineers is actually evolving. It's not about coding to a given spec, okay? It's not waiting for a product manager or a tech lead to come and tell you everything that you need to do. And all you have to do is translate their ideas into actual code. All right. So effective engineers and the engineers of today as well as the future are going to focus heavily on problem solving. Okay. You look at a problem from all angles and you're going to figure out, okay, what are the options I have to implement the solution, and then make a decision about which solution would be the appropriate one for the product at that particular stage. Okay. And when this comes together, you can focus on building great products, right? The meme is very prescient. You'll notice that smart engineers, the engineers of tomorrow, are actually great product builders and not necessarily just translating ideas, other people's ideas into code. All right, cool. So just a heads up, this is the first masterclass in a series of sessions that we're going to have. Today, Feb 27th, we'll talk about understanding user needs and the solution required to solve the user need. Okay. Next week, March 6th, we're going to cover how you take these requirements and translate that to an effective and flexible software design. All right. 3rd March, 1 week after that, is going to be coding, testing, and integration. Okay, very interesting stuff. So be sure you attend that. On 20th March, we'll talk about deploying and everything that it takes to deploy a finished product into production. We'll also talk about things like unit testing, integration testing, continuous integration, how to figure out things like Docker and many things there. And April 3rd, we'll finish off with the icing of the cake. It's my favorite, measuring impact and iterating. This is where you've put the product in the hands of real users and you're getting feedback. How do you measure this feedback, and how do you put everything together, incorporate the feedback, and keep iterating on the product as you make it better and better? All right, so it's an action-packed series. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started today on understanding user needs and the solutions that come about from there. All right. We want to propose 4 thinking lenses for product developers. Okay, whenever you see a problem, you want to use a framework, and within that framework, we want to define about 4 thinking lenses. And by using this framework, you can arrive at what might be an optimal solution given the needs of the product as well as the context. Okay, so without further ado, here are the 4 thinking lenses. We'll talk about them. The block on top is the feature request or the requirement. This can come from users, it can come from tech leads, it can come from product managers. Okay. As engineers, you're very interested in diving straight into, okay, how can I do this? You take it as a challenge. Okay. This is a feature and a request. How best can I implement it? What tools do I know? What new cool tools are there that I can put into practice and build a really nice solution? Okay, that is what we call jumping directly to the how of a solution. Okay, you take a problem, you want to figure out, okay, how can I make this happen? An alternative viewpoint, and the one that we want to talk about today, is the four thinking lenses. Okay, what? Understand the problem. Okay, and then the why, which is to figure out the goals and the metrics behind which this feature request has been made. Okay, and then who? Who are you building the solution for, and who has the actual problem? What is the user persona? Who are the stakeholders involved in making a decision about solving this problem? Okay. And finally, where do you see this problem in real life? Right? Is what is the environment under which this problem is observed? And what is the situation that is leading to such problems? Okay. So it might seem a little trite, but going with the what, why, who, and where. This is the four. These are the four thinking lenses that we want to propose to help you arrive potentially at a much better solution, okay, and a more appropriate solution at the stage of product development that you are in. Okay, this is very important. Don't try to outsource this thought process. Okay, as a competent engineer, you have to do your own thinking. Okay, you have to focus on the whats, the whys, whos, and the wheres, so that you can come up with the most effective technical solution and take this forward, take your product forward, and build something that is meaningful. Okay, in Crio style, let's learn about how to apply these four lenses by actually putting it through a few examples. Just giving you a lot of theory about what and why is not very exciting. All right, so we'll do it in the context of a few real world examples that very well might have happened in many of these companies. We'll start with the first scenario. We'll see how the four-step lens, okay, can actually help you in a situation where there's an existing product and you are responsible for implementing a new feature, okay, a new feature in an existing product. Think of yourself as a developer at the popular ride-sharing company called Ola. If you're coming here from outside of India, Ola is like the Uber of India. Okay, very popular, and they have a very wide reach within India. You have a feature request. Okay, you are a developer on Ola's driver app team. Okay, the drivers actually have different apps that they can install. They can accept rides, they can cancel rides, and do all the other things that drivers can do in ride sharing applications. Okay, so there's a feature from the product managers. They're saying, you know what, we should add voice-based user interfaces into the driver app. That is the request that's coming. They did their market research. They did their analysis of how the product is being used and the shortcomings. And the request that came from the product management side is, you know what, we can solve all of this by moving to a voice-based user experience. You are the developer. What are your next steps? Okay, let's dive in and see different ways of solving this problem. If you jump directly to the how of the solution, okay, take a moment, okay, think about how you will implement voice-based user input and user experiences within a ride-sharing app that is servicing the driver side. Okay, what ideas do you have? Spend a few seconds. I'll pause. Um, think of yourself as a driver. Think of all the operations you're doing, and then think about how voice-based user inputs can impact uh, the features that you're going to build, the functionality you're going to build. Getting some ideas? Okay, so some of you might come up with things like this. Okay, it's going to be a voice-based user interface. So the first thing is, you don't want it to just constantly keep listening. Maybe we'll give you a mic button. Okay, where should you place the mic so it's easy for the driver to see? They're driving, you don't want to distract them too much. So no, there's a beautiful app on the top left, unmistakable, or the top right. Let's have a button you press, that's the mic, and then you can activate the interface. Or it could just be like Hey Siri or Alexa or something. You introduce Hey Ola or something like that, right? The second decision that as an engineer who loves tweaking and hacking away at things says, ooh, there are so many speech recognition algorithms out there. Which model will work best for me? Which one should I use? Should I prototype this one or that one or the third one, right? And then you start playing around, and it's so much fun. You've built your model, you've built a prototype, you start talking to it, you start measuring how accurate it is or where the failures are, and start correcting right away. All right. That's the second step. And then you also think about in use cases like India, it's a very diverse country. Many drivers speak different languages. So which languages should you support? The speech recognition model should support these languages. You start thinking about all of this. Okay. And then you say, okay, that's a lot of languages. Should we just do a subset? Because languages have dialects. Not everybody who speaks Kannada the same way. There are actually 20 different Kannadas, not one. Same with Tamil, same with Malayalam. So many things will come up, right? And suddenly you're staring at a very interesting technical problem. And as a product developer, you love it, engineering challenges are amazing and you get excited by these things. And then comes, the estimate. Hey, you know what? Let's just get some 5 rockstar engineers from the team. It's going to be a multi-month effort, say 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months, but it's going to be one hell of an upgrade. The drivers are going to love this thing and it's going to blow out the competition, right? Well, let's apply the lens, okay? Understand the what. What is the actual problem? Why are we proposing that we need voice-based user inputs in the app in the first place? That is the first question, okay? It turns out, and the product managers figured this out through customer support logs and many things that they analyzed, that drivers are clicking on the incorrect button, okay, many times. Fat fingers, right? If you have 2 buttons or 3 buttons next to each other, there's a pause, there's something chat, and then there's something else, the cancel trip button. And while trying to press one button or the other, they were messing it up, okay? And they're still driving. You don't want to distract them too much, right? Yeah. And that's what's happening. They're pressing incorrect buttons way too many times. This causes incorrect cancellations, okay? There are some missed trips because of this. The driver is on the way and wanted to call the user, but pressed the cancel button instead, and it just canceled. Okay. Sometimes when you're actually driving and the driver just wanted to go and change the app or something like that, they ended up pressing the wrong button again, and it ended the trip early, while the passenger was still in the vehicle, right? So obviously, very bad user experience. The driver doesn't like it. The passenger doesn't like it. They don't want to pay more, but the passenger doesn't want to get off because the trip is technically not complete, right? That's the what. This is the problem. And so the product manager said, okay, maybe if you do voice, you can fix all of this. And that's why the request came. Okay, so why should you add voice-based UX? If you are speaking, then it could avoid a lot of these things. You can avoid unintended cancellations, which leads to very bad user experience. And then they show you a graph. Okay, here's the user experience metrics. These are all the cancellations that shouldn't have happened, and it led to these bad metrics. Okay. Second, so many trips were missed. The driver was actually intending to go on these trips, but hit the wrong button, it canceled the trip, some other driver got it, and this driver was super mad. They're calling us and telling us, look, this is horrible. They have not even made 5 trips. They had not even made 5 trips on that day. And so they're really upset about it. And then avoid trips ending prematurely, okay, which we talked about. So, okay, fine. So this is why you're saying you want to add voice-based UX. Great. Who are you solving the problem for? Okay. The drivers, obviously, in this case, they are the ones operating the app. Do they understand English? It's a valid, question to ask in a country like India, because many times they might not be able to read English. They prefer their vernacular languages, right? And so when they went to a broker who set them up with Ola, the broker said, okay, look at this button, the one on the left side, that's what you have to press. So maybe they're getting confused after some time, and they think it's the left button, but they forget if it's the first one, second one. Okay, fine. Second issue, are the cancellations intentional? Are drivers intentionally canceling it? They probably have started a trip, but then they don't like the destination. There's a famous use case, where the last trip of every day, they saw a large number of cancellations for users, for drivers. Drivers cancel a lot of things, a lot of trips, especially if it was their last trip for the day. And it turned out they just wanted to go back home. And if the trip that they were canceling was in a completely different direction, and by the way, Ola doesn't tell you what the destination is until you accept the trip, right? So uh, then they figured out, okay, makes sense. Why do the drivers want to go the other side of the city? Let's try to change the algorithm where we're sending them to their intended, their homes. We know where their home address is. Let's make sure we give them trips that are in that direction and reduce cancellations. Everybody wins. Okay. Last part is, our drivers losing a lot of money, but they're still canceling. This means it's obviously unintentional, right? Because they know they're going to lose money, they wouldn't cancel accidentally. So these are genuine cases of cancellations. Where are these problems seen? Okay. um, the organizations as the buttons, usually when, what did they do, what was next to the button when they wanted to cancel? Okay, are the buttons large enough to avoid incorrect inputs? Maybe the drivers are focusing on the road and they're just trying to press something, and they thought they were pressing the right button, but no. Okay, so this is the lens. Now you have a much better picture of what the problem is, why the problem is occurring, who are you solving it for, and where. With this, you can actually think of many different solutions, not necessarily voice based user experience, right? So here are some solutions. Maybe all you need is a large size button in a different color so that users or the drivers don't mess it up, right? Much simpler to do it as well, right? Second potential one, if they cancel, add a confirmation dialogue. That way, and don't put the confirmation dialogue in the same place as the cancellation. So if they go tap tap, it shouldn't accept it. So reverse it. So they have to actually go ahead and confirm in a meaningful way to confirm the cancellation, to cancel the trip, right? That's another potential solution. And third is add multi-language support. It's far easier to add multilingual support than to add voice-based user input, right? I know the adding voice-based input is probably a much more challenging, more engaging solution for a developer, but there are simpler solutions that are less risky and take much lesser time. Okay, a few weeks of effort with one or two people from the engineering team can resolve a lot of these very, very quickly. So it seems like definitely a good experiment worth trying, right? So this is what I'm trying to say when I say, focus on the problem and figure out what other solution options are there before you sort of commit to something that a product manager told you. Okay, this is one example. Give you a second example. Okay, before that, sorry, a few things to summarize. Like, after you evaluated all the options, the different solutions that emerged, UI changed, a messaging change, product flow change. These options came about, new options that the product manager had not considered before. And the last option, of course, is to replace or augment the tech, which is voice-based UX, etc. This would have been your default choice if you had directly jumped to the how of a solution. Okay, but there are easier uh, ways to do it, and those came about because you use the lens. So, solid developer is first a good problem solver. The coding can come later. I know that's the more exciting part, but this adds more meaning. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, this is a different one. Say you're joining, early technical solutions. Okay, this is more like an engineering requirement that has come to you from a tech lead. Say you are back in Ola, but not right now, but when it was still a very young company and probably did not even have the initial set of users. Okay, you are one of the early engineers. You are building Ola's backend. Okay, the tech lead walks up to you and says, "You have a lot of responsibility because we're going to start taking trips and we want to store that." Till then, it used to be spreadsheets. Someone would do something, it logs it into a spreadsheet, and someone manually assigns something, whatever, right? But you want to implement a database where you can capture these relationships between the passengers, drivers, and trips. Okay, that's the requirement you got, and off you go. Okay, again, if you jump directly to, okay, how do I do this? How can I create this database model? This is likely what you would come up with. Okay, you have a passenger table or a model, a driver model, and a trip model. The passenger model has the passenger ID, the driver model has the driver ID, and the trip model contains the relation. Okay, it gives you a trip ID and then the associated driver and passenger right inside the trip. Okay, but notice you made a very implicit assumption when you designed it this way. There's a one on one relationship between the trip, driver, and passengers. Okay, that's what is the implicit assumption. Of course, you can go and start writing this code. This is fairly straightforward. And the model has other details, so you can make sure you incorporate all of those as well. But basically, this is your trip model, right? Let's apply the lens again. Okay. Before you jump to the implementation, you're going to implement the trip, which ties the passenger and the driver together. Understand the product context a little more. Okay, what problem are you trying to solve? You want trips. Don't constrain your thoughts by the simplistic nature of the request. Okay, think a little ahead. How is my implementation going to be used in other use cases that might emerge within the company? Okay, today individuals book cars for private rides. Okay, it means you book a car, the driver comes, picks you up, drops you at a place, and then the trip is done. But you need to ask that, think about it a little more. Today it's one person. How are you going to handle things like there are two people, both of them are taking the ride, but they want the option to just pay their separate parts directly to Ola. Okay, instead of exchanging money between them. I'll pay for your ride, tomorrow you pay for my ride. Instead of that, you want to split the fare. What happens to the trip? In this case, you have two passengers going on the same trip with one driver, right? What if you want to do, shared cabs where there are multiple destinations, multiple pickup points, and multiple passengers, but a single driver, right? So if you think about these things, then the solution that will emerge from from such an understanding of the problem by asking the what problem am I going to solve. Okay, the other sections are probably not as relevant here, so I've skipped them here. Okay, so if you look at it, then the solution might change a little bit. Okay, now you have a passenger ID and a driver ID, but in the trip model, you'll have the trip ID and you'll introduce a new entity called trip type. Okay, a trip type is important. Is it shared? Is it solo? Is it split fare? Right? All these things come in. And then you'll have some modified relationships to ensure that a trip can have more than one passenger, right? And then the trip details, and the details can get more complicated. You have to now store source, destination, or do you want to have separate trips for each passenger and aggregate them differently into something that can be modeled directly with the driver? Okay, so all these solutions will emerge, and then you go ahead with the implementation and you keep everything flexible. And sure enough, after a few months since Ola began, they added ride shares. And the decisions you made during the initial implementation of keeping trips more flexible and not tightly coupled with one passenger, one driver, it saved a lot of effort of data migration. That can become a multi-month effort, right? Because people have to still be able to go back and see their past trips and everything. So you have to save all that data. But then the model gets complicated. How do you ensure smooth migration? That can easily be a multi-month effort spanning multiple engineers. But because you asked the question at the right time, right at the beginning, and made a good call, you've added a lot of flexibility and speed to the company. Okay. So thinking about it, even if it appears to be a very simple, request coming your way, can go a long way. All right. We'll do one more example, and hopefully you kind of get the idea, right? This one is on ROI. I mean, to implement everything. Sometimes you want an ideal solution, and the ideal solution is going to take a lot of resources. If you are flexible with how perfect the solution needs to be, if you're willing to scale back a little bit and give up on a few requirements, and that helps you go much faster and implement solution in a much shorter period of time, is that better? Let's assume you're a developer at Crio. Yay. Welcome to the team, right? So Crio runs some amazing community events, and we have just started one called Crio Winter of Doing. We've done Crio Summer of Doing. There's I Believe in Doing events, and so many other up and coming events that are all community based. They're free of cost and amazing attendance. Everybody loves it. They want to come. Now, the growth team, which has been doing a fantastic job of attracting a lot of people to come and attend these community events, they've come up with some requirements. They're like, thousands of users will come and sign up at the same time because we have a synchronized kickoff. Okay. The opening session is synchronized. And as soon as you announce and give everybody the access code, everybody wants to go to Crio.do, access the micro experience, which are guided projects on Crio, and everybody wants to enroll at the same time. So the growth team says, when everybody does that, please don't screw it up because it will lead to a very bad user experience. We don't want to drop users who are so excited and have come to start the community event. All right, let's take a look. Okay. If you had to provision for this kind of scale, massive scale coming at a very, very short time period, okay, like a focal point, it's a spike in load, then that's what you have to solve. If you jump directly, okay, how am I going to solve this? Think about it. Spend a few minutes. Okay. If you had to come up with, how you would solve this problem, here are some things that you might think about. Okay. You might perform a code audit. Take a look at your code, review it, and then you find potential race conditions. You see, okay, someone is accessing a database, and then you're making an update for sign up saying, okay, this user now belongs to this program. So let's add an entry there, right? But then there could be some race conditions. Maybe you want to provision 100 users per node, right? And then you're getting like thousands of requests coming in, and you think, okay, just save the spot for me. And by the time you go and confirm that slot, there are like 10,000 different threads that have come and done the same thing on a single node. And then everybody comes back and confirms the slot, and you realize, oh my God, no, the node can only handle 100 users, and we have to move to a different node, right? So we have a race condition here. Okay, so you can solve this using locks and other things. But anyway, good technically, right? Amazing. You'll have to write introduce atomicity, make sure the code is, handling its resources correctly and not over provisioning, right? There could be other bottlenecks as well, like, optimizing the database query. So many things can be done. Another line of thought is you want to reprovision your servers, increase the capacity, build bigger servers, get more servers, more memory, more capacity, more CPU. so that it can handle much larger things during peak traffic, especially. Okay, bigger, better, stronger, all of those things, right? And the third is, okay, I'm going to also write some scale tests. And the scale test is going to artificially generate all this load to ensure that even if we get 2 times the projected traffic from the growth team, we will still be able to handle the sign up flow seamlessly. Okay. So these are all solutions that will come up. And then you go talk to the engineers and you come up with an estimate. Okay, 2 months, I need one senior engineer and one junior engineer, and you give them 2 months and they'll fix it. Okay, seems reasonable, especially Crio scale, 2 months of effort in order to bulletproof our community events and user experience seems fair, right? But what does the lens say? Okay, let's start with the what again. What is the problem? Cryo community events, extremely popular. We currently cannot support more than n concurrent signups, and n is any number. Okay, but the expected turnout during community events is much, much greater than n, like 10x, 100x n, something like that. Okay, ask some questions. Okay, how frequent are such community events? They happen once a month, once in 2 months, 3 months, and then the growth team says they actually happen every 3 months. Then do you actually have to invest this much amount of engineering effort just to satisfy something that happens once in 3 months? Are there other things that are possible? Um, some more questions. The growth team is saying, okay, everybody's going to come. I'm going to share the access code, and they're all going to log in at the same time. Well, do you have to share the access codes to everyone at the same time? Can it be batched? Or let's say, okay, everybody enters the access code at the same time, but we'll tell them, hey, you are in a queue. Okay. Um, we will get your enrollment and sign up done, but it could take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on the load that we get. So we can make do with our existing infrastructure and just increase the pain a little bit for the users. Is that acceptable? Okay. Okay. So let's go to the why. Why is this a problem? Okay. If the sign up is broken, it's obviously a poor experience. People drop off, they'll never come back. They'll say, Cryo did this major thing, but they couldn't even handle signups. It's a waste of time. That's a big problem, right? The user experience will lead to bad word of mouth. We don't want that. Now, asynchronous sign-up flow is one option. If we accept the code, we tell them, hey, you know what? We're not going to just drop you off and leave the wheel spinning, but we'll tell you exactly, okay, your token number so, and we will sign you up in about 20 minutes. It's more predictable. They might say, I can't believe I have to wait 20 minutes. Okay, fine. I'll go grab a coffee and come back. It's fine. I really want to do this thing, and 20 minutes is okay, right? But some users might say, I can't wait 20 minutes. They might drop off. Okay. So these are the problems. Okay. Who are you solving this for? The users. And of course, you want to involve all the other stakeholders. Okay. The growth team, you tell them, okay, engineering, if I can do 80% of this capacity you're telling me, okay, 80% of the requested capacity with just 1 week of effort. I know the event is coming up like in 2 weeks. I can finish this in 1 week, but I can't give you guaranteed instantaneous signups for 10x the scale. I can't do that. But I'll get you 80% of the way and implement something where you'll retain about 95% of all the users. They won't cause any drop-offs. Would that be okay? Those are questions you ask. All right. So this could be the solution. Okay. You give an access code, and every access code, once it's entered, the backend will add it to a queue. And based on your position in the queue, you estimate the time taken for enrollment, and you let the user know upfront. See, it may take 25 minutes to enroll. You could even add some funny messages there and say, "Oh my God, this thing is really blowing up. Can you please wait 25 minutes while we fix our shit?" or something like that, right? And people might smile and say, okay, fine, whatever. I really like this. Let me just wait. Okay. When it is done, make sure the user experience is clean. You notify the user, they get an email, they get a web push notification, they get a WhatsApp message. Maybe if it's an important user, you even give them a call and say, hey, your thing is ready, man. You can get started right now, right? The best part is this takes just 1 week of effort. Is this worth it? It could fly because the growth team does not want to wait 2 months. They've invested a lot in marketing and the surge in demand has come about. They really want to get this going. So a 1 week effort is more acceptable than a 2 month open ended effort that might introduce some other issues as well. Okay, you can over provision servers, you can audit your code, you can do all the crazy things. Okay, but at the end of the day, a simple solution with a little bit of acceptable pain is probably worth much more than a potentially amazing solution that could crash or that could get delayed, right? So the four-step thought process comes to the rescue again. Figure out the right prioritization. Okay, you have an amazing community. Start now. Lesser effort in engineering to kick off means much better. And so the prioritization call here was, it's okay, that much pain is fine. Let's just go with the 1 week effort. You want to balance over engineering versus making expensive upfront investments. Okay, some quick fix solutions to the problems that are immediate might be desirable. Is it an elegant solution that fits your budget? Or is it just a quick fix that I know as an engineer, you want to make sure everything is working and it's a beautiful, amazing set of things working, tight and all of those things. But it's fine. Swallow your pride. Use the quick fix when it makes sense. And you know what that gives you? It buys you some buffer time. Okay, now that this event is done, you have 3 months left, right? For the next event. The growth team told you that. Now, this time you have 3 months, go for it. Okay, spend the time, come up with any other additional solution ideas that can be solved using engineering and user experience design. Work together, come up with a plan, create your sprints, and start executing. Okay, this might be a much better approach to problem solving. All right. Cool. That's all we have actually. If you were expecting a lot more details, it's actually pretty simple. The framework is very extensible. Understand the user needs. Understanding the user needs is very important for every problem solver and for every engineer today. Okay. You're no longer going to be at the receiving end of a set of requirements and faithfully take them and translate them to code. That age is gone. Okay, uh, think about the what, think about the why, who, and where. Don't jump into the how. Think holistically and build amazing products, flexible solutions, less amount of time, great return on investment, and ultimately a successful organization that is able to delight and wow its customers. All right. If you enjoyed this, the next session is going to be about how to translate requirements into software design. All right. It's going to be a really interesting session, and we'll talk about how different requirements have an impact on the design decisions you choose, and also how to iterate design. You don't have to go with a big bang approach to design, and how to make sure you can talk about iterative design process so that you're covering requirements in an effective yet efficient way. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here today, and see you all next week at the same time to continue the series on the art of product building. All right. Thank you very much.